Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today I have a story that is so weird, so odd, so out of left field that I'm not sure how I can introduce it to you guys out there in the audience. I'm also not sure how I can title this video, and I'm not sure what the thumbnail is going to look like. I don't have a picture of it in my mind's eye, because it's the story of a so-called homeless person, that will make sense in a little bit, who decided to use construction equipment in a public park to build himself a cabin in said park, so I guess he's not homeless. And for some reason, the city of Seattle, and by some reason I mean because of their crazy left-wing policies, is incapable of stopping this person from just deciding that he now lives in the park. And that's the story. It's madness, but we got to talk about it. Now, before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
Cabin in the Woods.
You mean like that Joss Whedon written movie where all the horror movies are like in a thing where they have to do a sacrifice for the old ones to not come back and destroy the world?
Cabin in the Woods.
You mean like that M. Night Shyamalan movie with the gays and like the little Chinese girl and Dave Bautista, who plays a teacher in this movie, a teacher, Dave Bautista, and he gives all the exposition for the entirety of the movie. Also, the whole movie's given away in the trailer.
Cabin in the Woods. Only problem is, it's not supposed to be here in Dr. Jose Rizal Park. Even the signs make it clear.
Oh, okay. They mean like an actual cabin in the woods that's non-movie related, so let them go ahead.
Hello, is anybody home? Where is the accountability? This is city land. Why not make an arrest for vandalism, for trespassing?
So first things first, I love when like an average person realizes how insane the laws have become in these woke utopias like the city of Seattle when it ends up on their front door. But secondly, and more importantly for those of you out there in the audience, they're calling this guy an unhoused man, which I absolutely cannot stand for a number of reasons. So first things first, these people are homeless people, formerly known as vagrants, but the idea that we're going to shift to a new term, the term unhoused, implies that there is somehow a responsibility for people to house these people, and they're not responsible for housing themselves. It's a little subtle trick that changes it from those people being responsible for their own existence to you and I, the taxpayer, being responsible for their existence, and I absolutely can't stand it. And secondly, the reason why I find this to be incredibly ridiculous and absurd is because the whole point of the story is that he built himself a home, a cabin, in a city park, so he is neither unhoused nor homeless at this moment in time because he has a home, he built it for himself. You just don't like where he built it, and don't get me wrong, I agree with you, he has no authority to do so, but you're kind of missing the whole premise of the story when you call this guy an unhoused person, because he has in fact housed himself, and that is in fact the story.
The Cabin is the latest saga surrounding Steve Irwin.
Whenever you have a Steve Irwin problem, what you need is the Stingray, and then that problem will go away. Okay, I'm sorry. I know it's too soon. My bad, guys. Relax. It was just a joke. It's a different Steve Irwin. This guy's maybe not even that Australian, okay? It's just fine. But obviously somebody who could stand up to gators is not going to be deterred by your regular, ordinary Seattle liberal.
The Cabin is the latest saga surrounding Steve Irwin, the homeless man who's facing criminal charges for digging up the hillside of the Seattle City Park with an excavator back in October.
Now look, a lot of you might think that I am particularly cruel when it comes to the homeless. Hell, I'm one of those people who thinks that a homeless person that has a dog is somebody that does not have their priorities in order, because if you cannot house and feed yourself, the idea that you would be attempting to house and feed a pet at the same time makes no sense at all. But we can debate whether or not homeless people should have pets another time. I think we can all agree, though, that if you're a homeless person with an excavator, if you're a homeless person with this much of worth of construction equipment, then maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't be counting as a homeless person. You shouldn't be an unhoused victim of society that the taxpayer needs to take care of, especially when you use that excavator in order to build yourself a home in a public park in the city of Seattle. On top of that, I just want to point out for everybody out there in the audience, because some of you don't live in left-wing cities that are crazy with regulations, although you might live in suburbia that has homeowners associations and all that. But essentially, if you wanted to build as a private person, apartments or anything in addition to your own home, adding even a second bathroom, the amount of permits and hoops that you have to jump through in order to do so in the city of Seattle are absolutely crazy and absurd. However, if you're a crazy, maybe Australian dead homeless person with an excavator, you can apparently tear up an entire city park, build yourself a cabin in the woods, and then they'll have to go to the news to talk about how much of a problem you are before anybody actually deals with this situation. This also kind of vaguely reminds me of that chainsaw homeless guy who was just chainsawing the hell out of this entire neighborhood and nobody was doing anything to stop him. I don't remember exactly where that took place, but this very much gives that same kind of energy as that, although on a much grander scale. The guy has an excavator. He is digging up and trashing this park, and in the crazy regulatory place like Seattle, where again, adding a bathroom to your home or any kind of construction will get you fines and you require a million permits and all that, is just kind of letting it happen because, you know, why not? Why not? I mean, even the title doesn't really rise to the level of seriousness. Its concern grows as unhoused man builds cabin in city park, Fox 13 Seattle. Now, to be clear, he's not unhoused. He built the cabin as his house. That's what he did. So the title's inaccurate right there. But again, it's just about concern. There's a little bit of concern. There's a little bit of people who are like, you know, I'm quite concerned about this guy with an excavator that has taken over this huge section of the Seattle park, and every time somebody tries to intervene, he ends up escalating in his behavior. It's a little concerning. I mean, remember, he's still a victim. He's still unhoused, despite the fact that he built himself a house, a cabin in the woods. But you know, it's concerning. You're concerned.
I mean, this is one single person destroying the East Awamish Trail. One person, over and over and over and over again.
Andrea Suarez is with We Heart Seattle. She's done homeless outreach, trying to get Irwin help and off the land that belongs to Seattle Parks and Recreation, but nothing's worked.
So this person that we're talking to says that she works for We Heart Seattle, and she's tried her very damnedest in order to help this individual, to get him to city resources and all that. And what I find to be particularly laughable is her describing his situation, and it's for a number of reasons.
He has job skills. He can run an excavator. He can build a home. He can install windows. Let's put him to work.
So yeah, this guy definitely has job skills. He can use an excavator, and a lot of people can't say that they could do the same. But let's not go crazy and say that this guy can build a home. I'm looking at what he's doing, and it looks pretty trashy. For a guy who's using modern construction equipment, this looks like it's built by a crazy person, and that is likely because it's built by a crazy person. The guy is crazy. But of course, you have an absolute idiot right here. All of these woke cities are filled with these people who think, oh my God, this guy's a victim. It must be circumstances that have him out here and not mental illness. So she's like, wow, this guy can work a job. I don't understand why he's not working a job. I keep reaching out to him to offer a job. But it seems like the crazy dude who keeps tearing up the park might actually be crazy. Maybe that's the underlying issue. But I'm just saying, maybe, just maybe, he could get a job. Maybe you want to hire this person who wants to leave it all and live off the grid. And by off the grid, I mean in the middle of a park in a major city, definitely on the grid.
Except he told me, I don't want to work. I want to be off the grid. And he told me, I don't want a home. And if I did have a home, I'd still have a cabin in the woods, because he's just dead set on this is his right. And it's been hard to convince him otherwise, unfortunately.
Now, I'm not surprised you weren't able to convince him otherwise. First and foremost, you're not very convincing. Let's be perfectly honest. And secondly, this guy's a crazy person. He's not an unhoused victim of society who missed a couple of rent payments. This guy is unbalanced. He's decided that he wants to go off the grid, which on its own is not crazy. I understand that there's some of you out there in the audience that are off the grid, although you're still watching me, so that doesn't make any sense really at all. But whatever, I understand that you're self-sufficient and all of that, but he's deciding to do that in the middle of a city park. And again, when somebody has an excavator but they don't have a job and they don't have a home, like an actual house. This guy did build his own cabin in the woods. This is not exactly the most fanciest thing. It looks like a crazy homeless person did it. Then maybe, just maybe, we're talking about a little bit of a crazy person who cannot be convinced. So she's tried talking to him. She's tried convincing him to go to city services. She's tried discussing it with them. And for some reason, that hasn't seemed to work. For some reason, these homeless encampments in the city of Seattle do not respond to people negotiating from a position where they absolutely have no leverage, and she cannot just figure out why it's not working. She just can't understand it. It's like she's dealing with a crazy person, and that's because she's dealing with a crazy person. The guy's crazy. That's the secret.
Fox 13's cameras got an up-close look at Irwin's cabin.
I've done it 5 times, and I'm tired of it. You know what I mean? And it's like once I get like this close to finishing something or something, then something happens.
So yeah, obviously this guy is a little bit off his rocker, for being perfectly honest. He says, listen, every time I'm about to finish my dream home, every time I'm getting to that last step, something comes up. Some people come and show up and they get a little weirded out by the fact that I'm building this in the middle of a city park and I have no right to do so, and I'm also completely crazy. So I never get quite finished. So if you're worried about the little bit of a mess that I have in this whole area, I mean, honestly, that's on you. But trust me, bro, trust me, it's gonna be absolutely amazing. And by the way, this guy's dead serious about building his home here. He says this is the spot.
When shared with Fox 13, this is where he plans to build his home. Other video shared with our station shows he's got a generator, books, electronics, and more.
Now look, while I am making fun of this guy, I do want to point out, to be 100% fair to him, that he's infinitely more productive than the people at Chaz or Chop, whatever you want to call that thing from, Seattle, where they decided to declare their own country, because at least he's got a structure and all that, and he's not using cardboards in order to prevent the gophers from attacking their crops that they're growing in the middle of a much smaller park.
Multiple forms of fuel. He has gasoline, propane, kerosene. He has open air fires.
And while Irwin acknowledges We Heart Seattle's help, he says no other agency other than law enforcement has come down to offer any type of assistance.
So yeah, we've done stories on this channel about the insane fires of these homeless encampments, and you can understand why. He has a generator that operates on diesel. He's got kerosene around there for whatever reason. He's also got a propane tank. It's an absolute disaster waiting to happen. A normal city would address this. They would arrest this person. They would disassemble this absolute nonsense. But of course, in the city of Seattle, they send dopey nonprofits like We Heart Seattle out there to try to talk to this individual, not realizing that he's made up his mind. Also, I'm guessing one of the fuels is for the excavator that he has, because again, you have a homeless person with an excavator, again, launching his own construction. And I just want to remind you that legitimate builders that want to make housing actually for the people who want to live in the city of Seattle have to jump through a million billion hoops, get all these different permits, while this guy is allowed to operate repeatedly without any consequences.
He sticks to himself. There's actually 3 different camps down there, and nobody ever bothers us.
So here you have somebody saying that there's a lot of different camps in this particular area, which is not surprising to me because we talked about Seattle and these homeless encampments before, and obviously when you don't enforce any laws, things tend to get out of hand. But what I find hilarious is that people who walk by this every day, and this is just that left-wing progressive, totally out to lunch kind of attitude, have said that they're not bothered by his expanding footprint.
Some people who use the trail inside the park say they don't mind Irwin's expanding footprint.
Look, I wish that they actually interviewed some of these ridiculous, insane progressives who were talking about how they're okay with this, because obviously this is a giant fire hazard. Obviously, these same dopes tend to also be environmentalists, so this will have devastating impacts to the environment, but they're like, oh no, it's so sweet. But did I mention unhoused? Can I talk about how he's the victim? Like, these idiot progressives are the exact reason why this is completely unchecked in the city of Seattle, and why this guy is just one among many, as we heard earlier in the segment.
But for Andrea Suarez, she says this cabin in the woods is a call to action for the mayor's office and for the city to step in.
And then there's Stephen and his safety. And when is the ticking time bomb of a fire to erupt. It's a tragedy all around.
And what about the safety to Mr. Steve Irwin? It's just a tragedy all around. Listen, it's not that tragic. It's actually a pretty simple, straightforward situation. You voted in a bunch of ridiculous, over-the-top progressive people who said that the real problem with homelessness was the fact that we were enforcing laws against homelessness. And wouldn't you know it, if you do that, it turns out what you get as a result is more homelessness, more craziness from these crazy people who happen to find themselves on the streets because these people are in denial about that situation. They tend to think if they just had shelter, if you just offered them enough welfare, they would come into regular society, get productive jobs and whatnot. But in reality, some people just don't want to function in society or are incapable of functioning in society. And pretending that's not the case isn't going to make the situation better. It's going to lead to a situation where an Australian nature person who's been dead for almost 20 years is using an excavator in order to build himself a cabin in the woods, potentially to set up a situation where Dave Bautista is going to come and tell people that they need to kill one member of their family in order to save the world from an apocalypse. That's what he's going for right there. I don't think it's a great idea, but then again, I'm just your normal person who thinks that maybe, just maybe, some law and order might be a good solution to some of society's problems. Again, call me crazy, but hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a homeless person building his own cabin. Till next time.